Yeah. Today we are on 65. So, 65a, the Mishnah, about 10 lines now. And we're continuing to discuss things related to Nemonis, which credibility is the word I was looking for yesterday. Ha'omer Lisha, man says to a woman, Kiddushin, I've married you. In other words, in the past, he's saying that I married you like last week or whatever. The Eomeros, but she says, look, Kiddushin, never happened. Who also bekroloseh? So he cannot marry any of her relatives because he has admitted that he's married to her. But she has not admitted anything. His, as we'll see in the Gemara in detail, his credibility as a single person, single witness, is nothing, right? Against her, denial. So there's no reason to say that she is that she's forbidden from marrying anybody else. Um, and it specifies, I guess, his relatives. Like if she's married to him, she can't marry anybody else at all. But like, let's say, and then he divorces her, right? So she's still forbidden to any of his close relatives as the former spouse. He omeras kidashtani. Well, the reverse. She says you married. Maybe who omer lo kidashtani. He says it never happened. So who mutar b'krovo sel? He would asura b'krovo. So then she forbids herself from his relatives, but he is unaffected. Kidashti. He says, I married you. He omeras lo kidashta ela biti. You didn't marry me. That was my daughter you married. So who asur? So now there's a third party involved, right? So who asur bikrovos gadola? So he says, I married you, so he can't marry any of the woman's relatives herself, of her own relatives. Ugadola muteris bikrovo. But the woman herself, meaning the alleged mother, no, she's definitely the mother, but the alleged wife is allowed to marry his relatives, just like in the earlier case. Now, what about the daughter? Who mutabi krovos katana? He can marry. He is permitted to marry the relatives of the younger one, of the daughter, right? So, assuming that they're not her relatives, let's say she has, a half sister or something, so from another mother. So that's okay for him because he says, I didn't marry the daughter, I married the mother. The who knows Katana? Uktana Muteris Bikrovov, and the younger one, the daughter, can marry any of his relatives as long as it's not related to her mother. So, in other words, the third party here is completely unaffected by anybody's statement because each of them is just a single witness, and as we know, that is generally not reliable or accepted. Kidashi is bitech. If he says, I married your daughter, no, you didn't marry my daughter. That was me you married. So Uasar Bikroas Katana, he can't marry the relatives of the daughter. Katana Muteris Bikrova. But the daughter, she didn't say anything. She only has single witnesses against her. So she can marry anybody. Humutar Bikroas Gadola. And he, since he said I married the daughter, he's permitted to marry the relatives of the mother because he never made any claim about the mother. Ugadola Surabi Krobov. And the mother can't marry his relatives because she said, I married you. Okay. So, of course, the first question of the Gemara is going to be why the repetition of these cases? You need both of the first two cases, right? Where whether it's him making the claim or her making the claim that there was a marriage. If we only had the case where the man makes the claim that they're married, mishum de gavroli so I would say, why we don't, why we believe the man, why we don't believe the man, because he doesn't care. Like, what's the effect on him? So he can't marry the woman's sister, right, or her mother, right? So there's like a handful of people in the world that he now can't marry because he claims that he married her already. So he can say it casually, right? So maybe that's why we don't believe him. But her, Ema ilav dekimle bedibura lohava samra. She would only say that if she were certain, because now that she claims to be married to him, she can't marry anybody else unless they get divorced, right? But that's not in her power. So she's not going to make a casual statement that would or make a claim that would result in her being unmarriageable. So lo havasarma, she wouldn't have said it. Velitzer iu bikrovoseh, so therefore it's okay. Let him become forbidden to marry her relatives. But we're not gonna place the same burden or credibility on her. So that's why it has to say the second case where the same rule does apply to the woman. If she makes that claim, then she can't marry anybody else. Um, okay. Now, what about the third case with the daughter? Kiddushin v'yomeres. Hatulamali, why do I need the third case with the daughter? We do need it. Salkadata chamina midaraisa hemne rav chamanala. I would have thought, you know why? You know what about the father? Like, since the father has credibility, has kind of some power over the daughter, since a father has credibility over a daughter, because he can marry her off. Maybe rabbinically, maybe the mother is also given that credibility. And so the mother should be able, with her claim, to have an effect on the daughter's life. Kamashma, no, that's not the case. She doesn't have any extra credibility regarding the daughter. She's just like any other person giving a single witness testimony, which is not credible. And now what about the last case? Kidashi is Bitcha, when he claims, I married your daughter and not the mother. Why do I need that too? I did Taniha. This just is symmetry, right? Since in the first two clauses of the Mishnah, we had symmetry, so we're going to add a fourth case in the Mishnah to give symmetry to the last case, to the third case. Okay, Itmar. Rav Amar Kofi. Rav says, in any of these cases, we force the man to give a get, because that way she's released from obligation, or from being forbidden to marry other parties. Shmuel Amar Mavakshin. Shmuel says we don't force him, but we try to convince him to give a get. Ahai. Now, which case are we talking about here? Ilema Reisha. Are we talking about where the man claims he married the woman? Lav kofin ika of the woman vakshin ika. Like, it's not. We shouldn't neither force him nor request from him, because there's no effect on her, right? She is, as we said in the Mishnah, she's permitted to marry anybody because there's no validity assigned to his claim. So what's the point of having him give a get, right? Ella Asefa. Maybe we're talking about the next case, right, where the woman says, I'm married, and the man denies it. Okay, so I understand why we asked the guy to give a get to the woman. So, let her off the hook. Now she can marry somebody else. Well, hi, fine. Ella Kofi in my book. Why do we force him? What did he do wrong? He didn't say anything. He can say, well, you know what? She's crazy. She's making up this story, but I have a crush on her sister. Right? So why should I give her a divorce? Why should, how can you make me give her a divorce, which would basically affirm that I was once married to her, and you won't let me marry the sister, right? What, that just because she's crazy. Why do I have to suffer? Ella shmatza hadada itmar. So what we're going to reinterpret Rav and Shmuel. They're saying the same thing. They're not arguing with each other. Amar Shmuel, this is how you read it. Shmuel says, "Mevakshim yimer 10 get." You ask him to give a get. Amar Rav, doesn't get me atzmo. If he does give a get, kofi nosali suba. Well, we force him. We don't force him to give a get. If he gives a get because we asked him to be nice to her, then he also has to give her a ketubah. Okay. Itmanam. We also had another brayso. Amar Rav Achabar Adam Rav. V'Amrila Amar Rav Achabar Adam Rav Amnun Amar Rav. Kofin umavakshin. We force him and we ask him. Tarte, what? What do you mean? You can't force him and ask him. What hachikama is what it means. As we just said, mevakshim imenli can get. We request that he give a get. And if he does give a get, kofin osali suba, then he's required to pay the ketubah. And of course, this is talking about, obviously there's no ketubah document here because the whole marriage is in dispute. But there's a standard amount for ketubah that would be enforced. Amar Rav Yehuda, Hamakadesh be'ed achad. The person marries somebody with one witness. Ein choshin l'kiddusha. There's no effect. We don't have to worry that maybe he's married. A single witness for Kiddushin has no effect. So they asked Shnei Amodim, what if there's a single witness and both the man and the woman say, yeah, that's right, we got married, right? And he was there, he was the witness. What about that? So now do we consider them married? In velo v'rafi biyadei, like he waffled. Sometimes he said yes, they are married. No, they're not married. He wasn't sure. Itmar. Amar of Nachman or Shmuel of Nachman said, "Hamakadosh b'yed achad." This case of single witness for a marriage. Ein choshen l'kedusha. Don't worry about it. V'afilu shnei amodim, even if they both admit that it happened. So Esvei Rava of Nachman. So Rava asks, Isha, our Mishnah says, Kiddashti v'yomeres lo kiddashta. A man says, I married you, and she says, never happened. Who also records? So we say that he, as far as he's concerned, Choshin l'Kiddushin, we have to be concerned that he is married to her, then that's why he can't marry her relatives. Of course, she is not affected. So Idi Kaidim, so what are we talking about? Were there witnesses or not? If there were witnesses, two witnesses, it's a good wedding, right? Then there's nothing to talk about here. If it was a valid wedding, then she's also forbidden to marry his relatives. If there were no witnesses at all, then like a marriage with no witnesses is invalid, right? So what's his claim here? So it must be when there's a single witness. So maybe because there's a single witness, we have to be worried that there is a marriage. And then this Mishnah, if that's the case, if this Mishnah is talking about where there's a single witness, so this Mishnah would serve as evidence that we do consider them married, at least as far as the part that we believe. In other words, whoever's making the claim that it happened and that there was a single witness, or brings forward a single witness, so we have to be concerned that there was a marriage, right? So how can you say that ein choshin l'kiddushin, that a single witness for a marriage has no effect? So my answer is no. We're talking about kagon de amar la kiddashtich b'fnei ploni ploni. He claims that there were two witnesses. Well, I'm saying, but they're not available, right? I can't find them to prove it. But my claim is not that we got married with one witness. My claim is we got married. We had with two witnesses, but I can't prove it. I can't bring the witnesses. Okay. So in other words, our Mishnah has nothing to do with with the single witness. Esvei, so they asked from another Mishnah. The man divorces his wife, and then they go, they're traveling, and they share a room in a hotel. So now what's the problem here? If you're if you slept with her, then you're considered to have married her, because that's one of the ways in which you can marry somebody. So, you married her, you divorced her, now you slept with her again. That's considered an act of marriage, and she needs another divorce. But Beis Hillel says Beis Shammai says get sheni. Beis Shammai says no, not a problem, and we'll see why. What the reasoning is. Beis Hillel get sheni. Yes, she does need a divorce. So what are we talking about? If there were two witnesses, that now in this case, two witnesses to they're sharing the hotel room, right? They're sleeping together after the first divorce. And then we have valid testimony that they slept together, and we're considering that marriage. So there's no reason to say she doesn't need it. She definitely needs a new get. But if there are no witnesses, so why would Beis Hillel say that? Why are you assuming that they slept together? So it must be that there was one witness that they slept together, and in that case, we would see, at least according to Beis Hillel, that one witness is a valid to have us at least worry about, or assign some weight to the fact that what may be the fact that they're married. So the Gemara says, okay, so if you follow that logic, look at the rest of that Mishnah. They both agree that if the first divorce, they had not been fully married yet; they were just engaged. Okay, in other words, they hadn't consummated the first marriage yet. They got divorced. Okay, they both. Then even Beis Hillel would say, not a problem. Then we don't consider that that they slept together, and so there's no reason for another get. Because since they have never consummated the marriage, he wouldn't be so bold as to sleep with her. Okay, now as opposed to if they had already consummated the marriage, they're more comfortable with each other. Or at least he's more comfortable with her, and you could imagine, or you would assign some probability, or assume that they did in fact sleep together. Now, if we're talking about that there was a witness, like if the reason that we're saying that that they need another divorce is that there was a witness that saw them sleep together. So then we're not talking about assumptions. We're talking about a witness, right? So what do we care if it was if they had consummated the marriage previously or not, or what his attitude would be? We have a witness that seems to be the cause of saying that they need another divorce. So the Gemara is going to take another run at this. Where we're talking about in that Mishnah, we've been assuming that the witness observed them sleeping together, right? No, the witness observed them. They shared a hotel room. They saw them go into the room. So that's yichud, right? So we don't know for sure that they sleep together, right? And if they and so now you can say if they had never been married, they had never consummated the first marriage, then we can't assume that they slept together in that hotel room. But if they had consummated the first marriage, then we would say libo gaspa, meaning, I don't know how to translate exactly, but he's more familiar with her, they're more familiar with each other. And if they do share a hotel room, then we can assume that, and then we have a witness that says they share the hotel room, then we can assume that they did sleep together, and so they are remarried and need a divorce. So Beis Shammai Savre lo amrinan hen yichud hen via. Beis Shammai says that just because there was a witness to them going into the room doesn't mean they slept together. Beis Hillel Savre amrinan hen yichud hen via. Beis Hillel says no. We're going to assume that if there's a witness that they went into the hotel room, then we can assume that they did sleep together. And then the end of the Mishnah follows. If they'd never consummated the marriage in the first place, then everybody agrees that we don't consider the seclusion in the hotel room to be that they slept together, even basically. As we explained, because they don't have that sense of familiarity. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta Mishmei Derav. Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel said, "Hamakadesh be'ed echad." If you have a marriage with a single witness, ein choshin l'kiddushin. It's not. Amar Rabba bar Avuna, Hamakadesh be'ed echad be'dina Rabba Amrei. In this case, of a single witness, the great court said, "Ein choshin l'kiddusha." There's no validity to it. Man be'dina. What does he mean by the great court? Rav. He means Rav. And some say Marav. Some say that Rabbi bar Rafuna said it in the name of Rav, that the statement was made by the Beidina Rabba, by the great court, Uman Beidina Rabba, who is the great court? Rabbi Yudan. Okay, so we're pretty clear that a single witness for a marriage means that there was no valid marriage. It's interesting, actually, why? Well, this will be a little clearer, maybe a little clearer later as we go on. But why is it that the witness is what makes it valid? Like, if I go and marry somebody in private, right? Like, wasn't there an act of Kiddushin? Why
Mm-hmm.
does the why does the usually, and this is all derived from the rules of testimony about monetary things, right? So if I lend you $100 and there's no witnesses, like you still owe me the $100. Sure, I can't prove it, right? I can't extract the money from you, but it doesn't change the fact that I objectively loaned you $100, right? So why don't we say that if I marry somebody in seclusion, we're married, right? Doesn't matter if they were witnesses. Sure,
And
in order, yeah,
cohabitation is one of the ways that you can get married in Judaism.
right, where there
The
usually are
rabbis
not
didn't
any
like that, but
witnesses,
that still makes it a marriage.
right? So, there's I looked into it a little bit. The Sosa Hoshin addresses this, but it was pretty unconvincing to me. I mean, he tries to claim um, that um, your own like your that your own experience is equivalent to a single witness. Okay, so but it's very like conceptual. It didn't really convince me, so I can't really answer the question. Um, Going on. Masi ach devoe bar ami. Shnaim shabam yisaya. Two people came from abroad. The isha imayim v'chavila imayim. There's two men and a woman and a package. See, one of the men says, "This is my wife." The other guy is my servant, and this is my package, my property. But the other man says, "No, you're talking about this guy is the slave. The woman's my wife, and this is my package." And the woman says, "These guys are just they're both my slaves, right? And the property is mine. I'm not married to either of them." She has to get divorces from each man. Okay, and she collects her ksuba from the package, right? From the whatever goods are in there. So what are we talking about? If there's witnesses who claim who side with one of the guys and witnesses that side with the other one, like then either this set of witnesses is telling the truth or the other one is. But either way, she's married to somebody. And the package belongs to one of them, right? So why do we believe her, right? So it can't be that they're witnesses. Must be we're dealing with. They each bring a single witness, um, and so it seems that so we do assign some validity to them because the woman requires a get, right? It is brought. So Gemara says, well, wait a minute. Now, here we're talking about a case where you have one witness saying one thing versus one witness saying another thing, right? So that's not the same as one witness who's not contradicted by another witness. Um, as far as her marrying somebody else, these single witnesses, they have no effect, right? What are we talking about here? So why does she need a get? Not to allow her to marry anybody else, because the single witness, we still hold that the single witness has no effect on the marriage. What about collecting the property, right? What about the ksuba? Then she would need to get a get, since the single witness cannot encumber either of the men with the obligation to give her a ketubah. Therefore, it's only if she gets a get from each of them that she can collect, because once she gets a get, then that's evidence that somebody owes, one of them owes her a ketubah. And it's according to Reb Meir, and also this only applies if the ketubah can be collected from movable goods rather than from real estate. Um, Little footnote there. My Havila. So what's the conclusion about Eid Rav Kana Amar En Choshin Likidusha. No problem. There's no assumption at all that there's a marriage in case of one witness. Rav Papa Amar Choshin Likidusha. Rav Papa says, yeah, we do have to worry about it. I'm only Rashi Rav Kana my date. Why do you say that? The alpha is davar davar mimama. Must be, as I mentioned before, that testimony regarding marriage is derived from testimony regarding money, right? Now, So then you would have to say that just as in monetary matters, if you admit something, that's as valid as any number of witnesses. So here too, like if there's a case of a marriage with one witness and both the man and the woman say yes, that happened, so that should be like an admission, and that should have the validity of two witnesses. So the answer is Hasan lo chayiv la'achrine. Um, in the case where I admit to something in monetary matters, that only affects me, right? We don't believe that regarding to affecting anybody else. But in this case, in the case of marriage, marriage has other repercussions, right? Who else you can marry? Who else can marry you? Therefore, we don't accept it. Okay. Mar Zutra Rav Ada Saba, B'nai Rav Mari Bar Isser. There was these two brothers, Mar Zutra and Rav Ada. They were sons of Rav Mari. The father passed away, and they split the estate. Also, coming to Ravashi, they came to Ravashi. Amrle, they said, Al Pishnai made him Amar Rahmana. Two witnesses are needed here. The is that so that like if one of them comes back and claims that something never happened, but we like they're asking, they split the estate, but there was no probate, right? There was no witnesses, right? So like they're saying, does that act have any validity, or does it need, as I asked before about marriage, or does it need the presence of witnesses to make it real, right? In other words, we're not arguing with each other. We have no claims against each other. We both agree that we split the property, right? But is that valid without witnesses, regardless? Maybe, if the tree fell in the forest and no one was there to hear it, it does not make a sound. Now, the only reason we have, at least in monetary matters, the only reason we have witnesses is to establish the truth. But the thing that actually happened and is valid. The reason we use witnesses is so that can't be denied later, but it doesn't affect the essence of the thing. If it happened, it happened. It doesn't require witnesses. Amar Abaye. Abaye said, now we're going to have three teachings of Abaye, three statements right here, and David will pick up tomorrow with analyzing them. So he'll probably go over this briefly. Amar Abaye. Abaye said, Amar lo if a single witness says to somebody, you ate chelef, you ate something that was not kosher. And the guy doesn't say anything. Naman, so we believe the witness in terms of, I guess, like, should he have to bring a carbon for doing something accidentally? V'tana tuna, and there's a Mishnah about this. The Mishnah says, same case, Potter, you don't have to bring the carbon chatos. Tama diamar lo. But the reason is because it seems like the Mishnah emphasizes that he says, no, I didn't. But if he doesn't deny it, then maybe the witness is believed and he does have to bring a chatas. Second case, the Amar Abaye, a single witness comes and says, your food became tameh, and the guy doesn't say anything. Now when we believe the witness, we have a Mishnah. We have a Mishnah that says if he denies that it was tameh, but a witness says that it is, then he eats it, then he is off the hook. Which implies that if he said nothing, then the witness would be believed. And the third case, the Amar Abaye, if a single witness says, Sharcha nirba, your ox was sodomized, and so the consequences are, I think it has to be stoned, right? And the owner doesn't say anything. Then the witness is believed. The Tana too, but we have a Mishnah about that. An animal that sin was committed with it, meaning the same case. It was bestiality was committed. The shehemis, or the case of an ox that killed somebody. It also has to be put to death al pi echad or al pi balim, whether this is established through a single witness or by the owner himself, Naman, then they're believed. So what does it mean? What does this mission mean by one witness? Either kamod balim, if the owner admits that that was happened, or the parallel would be that they say yes, I agree. Hainu al pi abalim. So that is the same as LPA or LPA balim. Like if the owner is saying the same thing as the witness, it's the same case. So what's the either or? Ella, the shasik must be in the case of the witnesses that the owners didn't say anything. So we see that the single witness is believed when the other party doesn't make any claim, when the other claim is silent. And tomorrow, David will discuss why we need all three of these cases. And so we'll leave it here for today. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Dov.
Have a good day.